12 years, Cross the Nations have been travelling the globe, carrying a cross and a message of love and hope. They've seen God do the impossible and change the lives of countless people. People think that miracles are just a work of fiction, but it's time now for people to hear the truth. It's time for people to hear the story of Cross the Nations.
So here's the thing, Graham. I was a pastor in the UK, in London, and I'd seen Mike on YouTube walking with a cross, and I was concerned for his mental health. Mike and I had known each other. We've known each other over 30 years now. We met at Birmingham Bible Institute. Mike came in 1989. I was there in 1988. And we were really good mates. I was at his wedding, you know, we were good mates. But in those days, there wasn't any internet, believe it or not, and we just lost touch. So I saw Mike on YouTube walking with a cross, and I thought, what's happened to him? So I got in touch with him. We met up, and long story short, he was preaching in Wimbledon. I was living in Epsom at the time. And after his preach, him and his family came over to our house for Sunday lunch. And we just picked up immediately kind of where we'd left off, you know, nearly 20 years previous. And the great thing was Mike started telling me these stories. Now, I was a pastor of a church, and things were going great, and I was very happy. But if I'm honest, and Mike often talks about this, sometimes we dial down Christianity and faith to what we can do. What resources have we got? What people have we got? What money have we got? What giftings have we got in the church? And we look at that and think, well, yeah, we could do this or we could do that. And here was Mike telling me stories that are like way out of the comfort zone. And I was really intrigued, because I'll be honest with you, yeah, I've been pastoring for a long time. I loved evangelism. I loved doing alpha courses. And, you know, if I wasn't leading the alpha course, I would be on it, because for me, seeing people coming to faith, seeing people getting saved, for me, that's one of the most thrilling things about the Christian faith. So I was more of an evangelist than a pastor, to be honest. So I was in the church. Things were going well. The church is growing, you know, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm in a very happy in many ways. But what Mike was telling me was something that was like outside of my experience, because although we believe in a supernatural God, a lot of what we do is in the natural. It is what we do in our own abilities, and there's nothing wrong with that. But God has called us to live, if you like, a higher life, to put our complete trust in Him. So I can remember Mike telling that story to me Sunday lunchtime. Monday morning, I was in a leaders meeting, 7 a.m. I was telling the same story to the guys in our leaders meeting, and we're all going, wow, wow, isn't that amazing? Because it was outside of all of our experience as Christians, and probably in that room, we probably had 100 years of experience as Christians, and it was outside of what we knew. We believed it, but it was outside of what we'd experienced ourselves. So I got in touch with Mike and said, look, Mike, it's not that I don't believe you, but I'd really love to come with you and experience this and see this for myself. And I think Mike did a few walks. I think he went to Italy and Germany and different things. And eventually he was doing a walk in the Channel Islands, Guernsey and Jersey.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd love to come out with you. And he said, well, why don't you meet me halfway? I'll walk Guernsey and I'll meet you in Jersey. And I said, yeah, all right, I'll meet you in Jersey. So I was all like dead serious, set up. I remember I went to the airport, took no money. I wish I had, because I was really hungry at the airport, thinking, oh, I could do with a lunch before I come. Yeah. And I'm like looking round on the floor, seeing if anyone's dropped any change, yeah, and all this kind of malarkey. Anyway, so I get on the plane. I don't even know if Mike's going to be there. Do you know what I mean? I'm landing at Jersey Airport. He knows what time I'm landing, but whether he's going to be there or not, I don't know. Anyway, I land, I come through. It's quite a small airport. Mike's there waiting for me. I'm really relieved.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm really excited. I brought all the wrong gear. I went in sandals, no walking boots. Mike thought that was hilarious. So I get the cross on my shoulder. Come on, then let's go. And Mike tells me straight away. He says, "Oh, mate, I've just been invited to somebody's house for dinner." And I went, "Oh, brilliant!" And I said, "I've asked if you can come too." So anyway, we literally walk quarter of a mile, half a mile from the airport, not very big distance. And we're at this house, lovely couple. It's a lovely summer's evening in June. We're having like a meal in the garden. And I'm thinking, mate, this crosswalking lark, it's all right. And it's great. And we had a tremendous time with this couple. We shared our testimonies of how we got saved with them, how we came to faith. We shared how Jesus had died on the cross and rose again. And, you know, if you put your trust in Jesus, you can have a new life. And we even prayed with them. Wow. And then I'm guessing it was about 10 in the evening. It was just kind of starting to get dark. May have been a bit before that, maybe 9:30. Anyway, we left their house and said goodbye to them. Now, here's the thing. If I knew then what I knew now, I would have realised that something was amiss. Okay, that something had gone wrong. Because here's the thing. Mike had told me that story and lots of other stories as well. And his testimony to me was, I've done these walks with no plans, no monies, and I've never had to sleep in the open air once. And I was like, that's amazing. Anyway, so we walked down into the main town in Jersey. Is it St. Peter Port? I can't remember. Anyway, it's the main town. And we're walking around. And by this time, it's dark. We're talking 10:30, 11, 11:30 at night. And we're walking around. And Mike says to me, Al, I don't think we're going to find somewhere tonight. And we stopped on the seafront by the beach in one of these shelters. You know, one of these kind of shelters with the glass windows. You know, you can imagine some pensioners sat there with blankets over their legs, you know, enjoying the view and whatever. We're stopped in one of these. It's gone midnight. And Mike's telling me, I don't think we're going to get anywhere tonight. And I said to him, but you told me that God provides for your needs and you've never spent a night in the open air. And he said to me, he said, that's right. But then you came along. And it was as if I'd ruined it. I was calling him a con man. And he was saying, no, you've jinxed it. Anyway, we laughed. And we laughed so much. And we had a real good catch up. And we were talking and chatting. But I kid you not, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. There was a thunderstorm. Right, we didn't get wet, but the wind was blowing sand in our faces and all this lot. After about 2 or 3 hours, it wasn't funny anymore. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh man, what have I done? Yeah. Anyway, at first light, we kind of come around. I think I did actually get some kit, maybe an hour. I don't know. Rucksack under my head, led on a bench, kind of thing. We found a cafe that was open. Mike had enough to get a couple of bacon rolls and some coffees. And I was thinking, how is this going to pan out? Anyway, we pitched up an Elim Pentecostal church. I remember there were two pastors there. One was quite suspicious of us and one was quite friendly. And we went in. They had like a cafe, like a bit like the hub that you've got at your church. And they gave us a breakfast. Anyway, we were talking, and they said, if you want, you can sleep in the church for a bit if you want. And we thought about that, but it wasn't really very comfortable or conducive. And then one of the pastors said, if you can get to my house, you can stop at my house. Of course, it's right on the other side of the island, isn't it? Always has to be, doesn't it? Yeah. So anyway, we said, great, we'll make our way there. We took his address and off we set. So here we are. I'm doing my first crosswalk. I thought it was safe. I've only gone for a couple of days. Do you know what I mean? I thought I'm pretty safe here. And what was great was the opportunities to share Jesus with people. And the amazing thing is we just live in such an international world that it wasn't just locals, it's all sorts of people. Wherever you go, you meet people from all over the world. So I can remember it was towards the end of the day, and this guy in a Walls ice cream truck pulled up in the garage, and he'd seen us 3 or 4 times in the day. In fact, he'd even bibbed us a couple of times. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he pulled over. He couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to know what was going on. Anyway, we got talking and whatever. And eventually, after a while, this guy, his name was Jose. He was from the Madeira, that way. He gave his life to Jesus. And I was like, man, this is amazing. So I walked with Mike then for a few days over that weekend, and we ministered in a couple of churches on the Sunday. And I got a real, if you like, a taster of what it was all about. And I saw, man, this isn't just Mike telling stories, it really is real. And I saw how the Holy Spirit operated. I saw the anointing that was on it. And I saw how life-changing it was for people we met, but also so life-changing for me personally as well.
Yeah, because I think, like, Mike sort of eased into it a little bit, didn't he, with like carrying the flag? I mean, you say eased into it, he still walked the length of the country, but he started off with provision, and then he eased himself into then having no provision, and you just went straight into that craziness. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because I think, am I right in thinking that since then, have you ever had to sleep in the open air again?
No, never have. So
it's crazy.
Mike in 12 years of crosswalking has spent one night in the open air. Me, my first night was a night in the open air, but never since. So that's absolutely amazing. Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it? It's just bizarre. But you still interested back, Alan. You like after that one, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, to be honest, to be really frank, I had a season of personal crisis during that time of like, who am I? What has God called me to do? And there were lots of issues going on, and so that was one thing. But I knew that this is something now that God had put in my heart also. Yeah. So I joined Mike the following year, then in April the following year, to walk across Poland from Warsaw in the east of Poland, all the way across Poland to the border, and then across to Herrnhut in Germany, which is East Germany. It's a day's walk across the border. In fact, Graham, you joined us for that last day, didn't you?
Sounds quite familiar, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a real transformation for me, because obviously I got a taste when I went to the Channel Islands with Mike, but then we walked for 16 days across Poland. And the thing that struck me really was that the gospel works all over the world. It's powerful. And, one of the things people say about the UK and Europe is they'll say things like, it's post-Christian, people don't really have any faith anymore, it's secular, it's all about science, people aren't really interested in God. And the truth is that that's not the case at all. There's a real hunger all over the world, and even in Europe. And so, one of the things that excites me is that we will go to places that are meant to be tough, resistant to faith, that people aren't interested, and we want to go there. And obviously we're praying for the kingdom of light to break into the kingdom of darkness, but we're looking to see people come to faith and to see the testimony of the word of God bear fruit in people's lives. So one of the things that really, I think, was really transformational for me was that we started walking across Poland. The first weekend we stopped in a city called Łódź, and we were staying with this little church. Honestly, there was about 15 of them, but they were all young people. I think the pastor was the oldest, and he was like 29, 30. Yeah. But they were all young people. They were really on fire for God. They were doing lots of friendship evangelism and reaching out to their mates and stuff like that. And they had a fantastic heart for worship. It was a great little church. And I remember Mike preached, and we said to them, should we go out on the streets this afternoon? And they said, yeah, let's do that. And I think all but one or two of them said, yeah, we'll come. And so we went out, we had like a Chinese meal for lunch. And I remember it was a really interesting thing. There was a guy, we were in this restaurant eating a Chinese meal, and there was a guy outside going through the bins looking for food. Now, here's the first miracle. I saw him, and I thought, I can't see a guy going through the bins while I'm eating my dinner. So I went out, and there was a seating area outside, and I took my dinner out to him and gave him my dinner. Can you believe it? Wow. I gave him my dinner. And it's really interesting. The pastor,
I can't believe it.
It's true. You were there, Mike. So the pastor, obviously, it impacted him a bit, and he started talking to this guy. And, 15 minutes later, he's leading this homeless guy, or whatever the situation is with him, he's leading him through to faith. And then that afternoon, we go out on the streets, and these young people, they're so keen, enthusiastic. They saw 13 people come to faith in a couple of hours and saw their church basically double in size, just like that. And for me, being part of that, all we did was facilitate. We didn't do it for them. We just gave them the opportunity. For me, that was a real life-changing moment for me. And I just thought, this is what I love. This is what I love to see.
Is that, something I've always noticed about the crosswalks, and I've always thought is really profound, is that there's so many different aspects to what it accomplishes. You initially you go, you set out with a flag, but you down the road you carry a cross, and it's the initial thing of carrying a cross that gets people's attention. But then along the way you get these stories of how people came to faith, how people have been healed, how God provided. But one of the things I always find most amazing is how the church responds to you both going out there. Because, some places have no idea that you're coming. And often the churches that you speak in, you pretty much get invited to speak at a church every Sunday. And quite often, as far as I'm aware, that's not a set-up connection beforehand. That's just something that kind of happens along the way. But what's profound is, like you've just been saying, it's like, who'd let two guys walking with a cross randomly just come and step into the church, into the pulpit, or even to come and do a bit of teaching or training. You don't know really much about these fellas, but it's just like it's like the grace of God, because you don't just go and teach or do a bit of a sermon, just share your testimony. You kind of equip people to evangelise, and like you're saying, you go out for a meal with a bunch of people, but you end up sort of setting up an appointment for the pastor to lead somebody to the Lord, and I just think it's amazing how God uses you to encourage the church and to really sort of that aspect.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I have this constant conversation with the Lord. God, can I just organise the whole thing before I go? communicate with pastors of churches, so I know which church I'm going to be preaching at. They know a bit about me. They've got time to check me out, websites and all the rest of it. Can we just organise this itinerary a bit like normal ministers do? But, you know, the whole point of this way of doing things is that we completely place our lives in God's hands, and our steps are in his hands.
Yeah.
And because we don't have anything, we're having to rely on God, depend on God. And oftentimes we're going with the flow. We're getting into cars that are not necessarily roadworthy. We're putting our trust in drivers' hands that drive crazily, that think the white line in the middle of the road is a third lane. You know, we're constantly trusting, going with the flow, ending up in people's houses, strangers' houses. They don't know us, we don't know them. But on the walk that Alan first came with me to the Channel Islands when we met in Jersey, that first night at the pastor's house, remember he said, if you can make it to my home right over the other side of the island, you can stay with us. That was God ordained. Yeah. Because they were a lovely couple, but clearly had gone through a lot of pain. And the ministry had struck them quite a few blows. And we could see the pain, you know, especially in the pastor's wife's face. And we could tell that, you know, that she'd, that she really needed God to come and set her free from a lot of pain, a lot of disappointment, perhaps, a lot of things she'd been through, they'd been through as a couple. But Alan and I, this was our first proper reunion, I guess, where we could spend time catching up with what we've been doing for the last 20 years apart from each other since we both left Bible college and went our separate ways. But we was always good mates at Bible college, but it's like we picked up from where we left off, and we were laughing a lot. We were remembering things and talking about stuff and telling stories and laughing together. And you know, we became very, very close, good mates, like brothers, very, very quickly. And our relationship as mates, as brothers, was, I think, infectious and contagious. And when we went into people's homes, especially the home of a pastor, God used us to bring that environment with us. And very often, you know, we could see, you know, pastors and pastors' wives begin to relax and begin to sort of like share, get things off their chest and tell us about things that they could never tell anybody else. And here's two guys, we don't know where they've come from, we don't know where they're going, probably never likely to see them again. But whilst we're, you know, two blokes walking with a cross, we had at the time, you know, over 50 years of full-time ministry experience between us, of pastoring churches, of leading various ministries. And so these guys were able to talk to us and share with us, and we were able to minister into leaders' lives and pastors' lives, and it's a privilege very early on. And like you say, there's so many different aspects across the nations, and one of them, which we've come to realise, is that we get to minister to leaders and to pastors and to help them and to befriend them and have a laugh with them, and so they can relax. And this particular couple in the Channel Islands, you know, we have kind of a crazy sense of humour, a very practical, you know, practical joke as well, sense of humour. And you know, when we first arrived at their house, they were really serious. We found everything funny. They found nothing funny. And you're kind of thinking this might not work very well. We were like giggling of a night time before we went to sleep of the night because we were laughing at stupid things. But by the time we left their house, the pastor's wife was laughing with us. We'd noticed that she started finding things funny that she wasn't finding funny, and we could see that God was doing a real number on her. Yeah. And a lot of stress and a lot of pain came out of her life before we left.
Because, you know, like, I remember when Mike started the crosswalks and stuff, like, and you know, you'd have different people jumping in at different times, Mike, and I suppose in that way it was refreshing. But I think I think I'm right in thinking that it probably really changed when Alan came along, not just to sort of carry that extra load into the cross, but the banter and that aspect, because I went through. I don't know if I should even mention this or not, but when I did the last, I did the last day of your Poland to Germany crosswalk across from Poland into Germany with you. And I remember, right, you stitched me right up because Mike had said, "Oh yeah, come out and do." I was interning at Mike's church, and he said to me, "Come and come and just walk over, come over and walk over the border with us. Just a quick hop over the border. Just won't be very long." So I got on the plane, got out there, and I remember turning up in the van all excited, and I'd got like ankle socks on and stupid trainers and like stupid shorts, just thinking, "Oh yeah, just a quick 5 miles over the border." And as I'm driving in this van, coming, I was essentially driving in the route that we would have been walking. I was sort of coming the opposite direction from Hernhook to where you guys were with the YWAM guys. And I remember being in the minibus and laughing with all these like young people from YWAM. And then the more and more that the journey's going on, I'm thinking, flipping it, we've been in this van for a while. Why? I thought it was only 5 miles. And in the end, it turned out to be 24 kilometres, didn't it?
I think it was more than that.
No, it was 24 miles.
24 miles, right? So all these years gone by, I still didn't know that. But I remember turning up and you two just laughing as soon as you got out the van because you could just see the horror on my face. And that horror continued throughout the day. It was my first day and I was all right at the beginning, but as the day went on, I got worse and worse. Decided to walk through a river, getting blisters. You warned me, but I still did it. I thought I knew better. All this kind of stuff. But the thing that I really remember was just how it can go. You can go from just having such a laugh and a joke and keeping spirits up to then all of a sudden ministering, like straight from the banter and then straight into ministering to someone. And often how actually the banter really helped in ministering to someone. And like you say, it really made him feel at ease. And I don't know whether that surprises people. Maybe people listening and stuff and watching. I don't know if it surprises them how much you actually manage to have a laugh on these crosswalks, as hard as it is, as grueling as it is. Like firsthand, I've witnessed the humour and stuff, how it keeps you going, but not just keeps you going, but actually really does open some doors at times for you to be able to minister into people's lives and stuff like that. How many nations would you say you've actually walked through now?
I think between us, we've done about 30 nations now. And the plan is we want to finish Europe. We want to do all of Europe, which is, depending on your calculations, about 55 nations. So there's still quite a long way to go. Yeah,
because you don't always walk together. Sometimes you do the odd one by yourselves still.
We sometimes I'll take a guy, an intern or somebody who's a younger fella at our church or somebody that knows us and would love to come and experience it. So Alan's taken a couple of young guys. I've taken a couple of young guys. We do that sometimes because it's an opportunity then to disciple people, to train and equip. Because, Alan and myself are not getting any younger. And, we're about 54 now. And so we want to see another generation coming up and taking on this baton and running with it. Graham, I was just thinking about you when you were with me in Wales. Something happened to you, didn't it, when you were with the Cross the Nations?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Mission through Wales, something amazing. That's not evangelism, but transformation in your life.
Yeah, it was amazing because I'd just finished at a Christian music college in Coventry called Nexus, and me and my friend, we knew Mike, and we decided to, he invited us along on the crosswalk, and we went. And like I said before, we thought it was just going to be a bit of a chat and a laugh and stuff. And we knew that it, we'd probably see something cool, but what shocked me was how much God sort of did in me. Like, I was expecting to go out and be doing loads of stuff, but God really sort of did a work on my heart and stuff, and really the times when we were walking, I was taught about things that I'd never really grown up knowing. about walking in the Holy Spirit and operating in the gifts of the Spirit and things like that. But I'd never, before the crosswalk, I'd never spoken in tongues before, and it was something that we chatted about. I remember we were chatting about it along the way and stuff, and I have to say I had a lot of reservations. You know, I'd had a few bad experiences growing up with that, and feeling like people were trying to force me to do it at times, and I wasn't a proper Christian if I didn't speak in tongues and all this kind of stuff, and it really put me off wanting to at all. But what God did through Mike was really disarm me really on that walk, and so you sort of snuck in the back door, and before I knew it, it was the last day, and I, by this point, Mike didn't even need to ask me. I was like, I want to pray. I want to pray in tongues. I want to get baptized in the Holy Spirit. I want that to. I want it. I've sort of moved past this offence and this fear of it, and now I was hungry for it. And I remember we were in the camper van. We had a bit of an awkward worship moment. I think I tried to sing a song out tune, off key, what have you, but we had a moment. God turned up all the same, and we just you just all started praying, and it just started to happen, and I started to pray in tongues, and I remember going home and being transformed after that day. I remember in the weeks that followed that crosswalk, I was waking up in the middle of the night praying in tongues before I'd even sort of got to my senses. I'd wake up and catch that I must have been doing it in my sleep. People would tell me, "Oh yeah, we heard you praying in tongues last night in your sleep. It was really weird," and stuff like that. So whatever happened to me on that crosswalk, I kind of wasn't the same after that. And
I just remember when we were in the camper van and it happened for you. We were praying and the Holy Spirit came and you started praying in tongues. We were all praying in the Spirit and the camper van was rocking from side to side on the side of the road.
It's like all the fools and horses, wasn't it, when they're in the van, when they've got all the money. But I think, you know, as I'm sure people watching and listening have realised, maybe they didn't know it before, but maybe they just find it out now. But there are so many different aspects to Cross the Nations. You're more than just two guys walking with a cross and being a symbol. God uses the ministry to really touch so many lives. There's countless stories and testimonies that we could get into, and I think, as we said at the start of this, this is the first in an ongoing series, and today is really just the introduction of into a bigger discussion about what God's been doing in the last 12 years, and I'm just really excited for people to hear these stories, and maybe they've heard some of them before, but to maybe hear some little nuggets they've not heard before, and hopefully by the end of it, people watching and stuff can feel like they've been on a crosswalk with you. We'll make the experience that real for them. But we've got so many topics to touch on in the coming weeks, and so many different aspects that we want to talk about and stuff. And hopefully today is give people a little bit of an insight into, you know, the start of it, and we can really start getting into some nitty gritty from here, and some of the, because there's some pretty cool stories to come, I'm sure, and some pretty cool discussions coming up. I just want to say thank you to Mike and Alan very much for doing this and agreeing to it. And I think that's it for the first episode, fellas.
Great.
So cheers.
Thanks a lot, Graham.
Brilliant. So tune in next time, everybody.
I hope that you've enjoyed watching Cross the Nations, the series, and hopefully it's inspiring you and showing you that God still works today. If you've got a story about how Cross the Nations has touched your life, or maybe you've met Alan and Mike along the way, please email us and let us know at hello@crossthenations.com. It'd be great to hear what God's done in your life, and tune in next time for another episode of Cross the Nations, the series.